I have a question from somebody listens to the show asking, are licensed properties a bad idea? Meaning, if you're a publisher, is licensing a valid model for, for comics? The idea here is to be like an IDW who licenses Marvel or, maybe, GI Joe, Transformers, kind of those books. Is licensing valid? I think I've talked about this before, but it's an interesting topic and it's always worth talking about again. So, let's get into it. Hey everybody, this is Perch. Licensing. Is licensing a good idea if you're a publisher? And I mean, the short answer is probably no. Now, why so quick and why so definitive? Because you can make money off licensing. Certainly, you're able to, but you just got to kind of game theory or play out some of the strategy around licensing. And I think before you step into that, you have a couple questions to answer. Like number one, what are you after exactly? If you're a small company and your plan is to get some properties put together and make some money off of Netflix or Amazon Prime or what have you, this is a valid business approach that small publishers are using right now, but it's also not necessarily a good one. If you're going to try, if your end goal as a publisher is to make money off of something other than comics, then when you license the rights to properties, you're going to have to pay a lot more upfront to also obtain the rights to take it to other mediums. And if you're new and starting up, you don't know if these things are going to take or not. So you're just basically dumping out more money at the beginning without a clear picture of what more you can do with it. So, and if the IP is your own, then that's where you have a lot of ability to go out and license it off yourself or sell the rights to a studio or any of these things. But licensed properties, you don't get that ability. If you have licensed GI Joe for comics, you can't suddenly go out and just start making GI Joe movies, or even if you come up with a really killer story that somebody wants to adapt into a movie. Odds are in your licensing agreement, you don't even own the real rights to that story. And I know at least one major publisher that got super burned by that. They thought, well, we don't own the properties, we can't take it to the movies, but we're still creating IP and we're still creating these ideas. So if there is a translation of this film, we'll make some bank that way. And the answer is nope. The licensing agreement you took meant you can't negotiate that deal. You may get some level of kickback or some level of royalty, but the people who are negotiating on your behalf are the license holders. And the license holders are pretty much going to cut you out of the deal because it's translating the screenplay of your comics into the movie. If they can change enough so they can cut you completely out if they need to. They're not going to do a line by line translation in any event anyway. And the odds of you being successful are astronomically low. Now, a different way to look at this is, I think, what IDW has done and a couple others, which is to say, okay, we're going to license some properties, and those are going to be our bread and butter. That's going to be what's going to deliver kind of monthly comic revenue while we experiment with some new properties. And if one of them takes off, then that's what we'll sell, and that's where we'll make the big money. So, the license stuff is the keeping the lights on revenue. And the new ideas are that's the hockey stick. Meaning, for those of you who don't know that term, that just means the hockey stick is growth of revenue. And why they call it a hockey stick, if you think about how a hockey stick is shaped, it's a slow increase, and then it kind of does a steep increase. And that's, if you've ever lived in the venture world or dealt with a lot of startups, people trying to go get funding, they always paint this hockey stick picture of, we're going to get the basics down, and then we're going to shoot for the moon, and that's where the revenue is going to go up. We're all going to be rich. And the reality is way more of these ventures fail than succeed. But if you're going out to raise money, you're going to kind of need to paint that hockey stick picture. If not, not going to work. So, you can do that. You can basically say, hey, these licensed properties are going to keep the lights on while I do more as a business. The challenge is the licensed properties often become a bit of a trap. in order to truly, get that ongoing revenue, you're going to have to put decent creative teams on it in order to maybe meet the requirements of your licensing agreement. You're going to have to put focus toward them. That's going to take time and energy away from your really big ideas. And plus, revenue in hand is always more tempting in many cases than potential revenue, especially if you're tight on bills. So what happens is if you start to make a bit of money off, say, G.I. Joe, you're likely to put a little bit more money into making G.I. Joe make you even more because that's the revenue you have and you understand, versus living with what you're getting and taking some risks on other properties. It just psychologically, it just tends to work out that way. You can go into it with all the good intentions you want, but when push comes to shove, you're going to go to what's bringing in today's cash. It's very hard to be disciplined to do otherwise. Not impossible, but very, very hard. Generally speaking, licensed properties also limit what you can do with it. So if you're comics and you're licensing, say, a toy property or even a movie property, you're stuck being not as good as the movie. And if it's a toy property, you're often stuck not inventing brand new things because they can't make toys off of it. So in the license agreement may not let you. Or the fans may not completely respond because they can tell what is the core product that you've licensed versus your little add-ons, and your little add-ons always seem kind of phony. It's very similar to how Marvel's Star Wars comics started to feel after a while. They introduce a rabbit who can run through space and a cyborg and other things. It's like, nah, I'm not going to be seeing that in the movies anytime soon. I remember the comics between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and you're looking at that and going, there's I could tell what is core Star Wars, what is Lucasfilm, and what is the Marvel invention. And the Marvel invention stuff always seemed kind of cheesy. So all this said, it doesn't mean you shouldn't try licensing. It just means it's costly. It's going to take more work than you think. It's never free money, and it is going to limit your upside. You have to have a really clever business strategy on what your upside can be, because if you don't, then you're just paying out cash and you're not getting a lot in return. If you're a small publisher, it's worth thinking about these things because you only have so much time in the day, and also, you ever heard the expression, the cost of money gets more expensive? What they mean by that is, if you start a business, your first year is your cheapest money. It's your cheapest revenue. That's where you've got your new ideas, and you've got, you're investing, and you've got some energy. In year two, you're into some sustainment, and also you start to get tired. You're not fresh in the market anymore. From a pure marketing and comics perspective, you can always go out and say, hey, we're a brand new comics company, and we're going to excite you, and we're going to do some amazing things. On year two, you're not new anymore. People know what you offer, and you no longer have that element of, hey, maybe these people will be great. People know exactly what it is that you do. Now, if you happen to be wildly successful in your first year, this is a strength because now you're working off of your reputation. But small companies are at a huge disadvantage compared to Marvel, DC, or even some of the established indies. They have to establish that relationship with shops. They have to get their library out. They have to get all their content out. So the cost of money gets more expensive. The money you put in year one feels cheaper than the money you put in year number two. It just, time has a way of kind of pulling you down. That's why it's important to strike fast. Licensed properties can require a lot of approvals, can require a lot of pieces to them that will basically slow you down. It's also always a little bit dangerous to try and work with a property you don't entirely control. If you're a small company, you don't want to be at the whim of Hasbro or somebody else. You want to be able to kind of manage your own world. And also, you don't want surprises. You don't want to wake up one morning and discover that, say, Hasbro has decided that they're not going to produce G.I. Joe toys anymore, and they're kind of pulling out of the market because they just don't want to, or they're making more money somewhere else and they're tired. And keep in mind, having worked with big companies before, they are not forthcoming about their future brand plans. Maybe they'll give you a bit of a roadmap, but they have their own shareholders. They have their own things to meet, and surprises can come in many different directions. So you think you've got some locked up property and it's all good, you could very quickly find out that hey, what you bought, they're moving into sustainment themselves, into legacy, and then you paid top dollar for something that isn't even being supported by the licensor. So, the value, of course, you get something people recognize. You get to put out a comic, and you don't have to advertise. This is a Transformers comic. You all know Transformers, right? Here's a comic about those people you know. That's quicker and faster than building up a brand new property of your own, no doubt about it. And if you work that angle well, you can be successful. It comes with plenty of pitfalls, one of those, in addition to strengths. Hey, what do you think though? Is do you like licensed properties? Hate licensed properties? What do you feel about all this stuff? Let me know in your comments below. Like, subscribe. Please do subscribe if you haven't already. Would really appreciate it. Follow me on social media, Twitter, Facebook. Send me an email at comicsperch@gmail.com. And thanks for listening.